Today we're going to talk about the Magpul PRS Light Stock. I just got this in the other day directly from Magpul. It's just started to hit the wholesalers, so there's a lot of discussion and questions about it out there. So I figured I'd make a quick video about my initial impressions on this. I have not been able to shoot this on this gun yet. But as you can see, I've had a few PRS stocks over the years, and so I have a pretty good idea about how this is or is not going to work. It's got some things that I don't like about it. It's got some things that I really like about it, and that's kind of what we're going to discuss today. I had this stock on it. Actually, I had the stock previous to this. It was an ACS. I destroyed the ACS stock because sometimes you got to destroy shit. So I put an ACS Lite on it. And then this came out and it was like, boom, got to put it on there immediately. So I ordered one to put it on there to test it because this is really the perfect platform for it. As you can see, I have played with ACS stocks, or sorry, PRS stocks and ACS stocks quite a bit. This is a very old 5.56 24-inch Super Bowl barrel. It's super heavy. You don't want to carry this thing anywhere, but it is accurate as hell. It's really old school. It's pretty retro stuff. I haven't changed it a whole lot. I'm using it to test a Swamp Fox right now, but that's neither here nor there. So one of the big things that I really hated about the first gen PRS and the second gen was this thing. I don't know anybody except myself on the surface of the planet who has not lost this cover. And it was a huge detractor from it. This is basically a piece of pick rail down here so you can add a monopod to the back of it. But it doesn't really have anything keeping it in place. And so if you put this on a bag and it starts sliding, it'll come off. Next thing you know, it's on the ground. You forget about it. You're out of there. Boom, done. It sucked. It was the worst part of this whole thing. The second part was that there was no quick detach mounts, and as times changed, quick detach mounts became more and more prevalent in use, and so it really kind of was a detractor. They fixed that by making one of these that has a QD cup built into it, and that fixes a lot of that problem. This one is not a big deal. I'm not carrying this damn thing anywhere. It's super heavy. These were subjugated to A2 tubes only. These were 28 ounces, and I don't know length of pull or cheek rise on this one. I don't have the tech specs on it. I could measure it. Let's see what the smallest length is. It's 10 and 3/8. Okay, so that's from the edge of the receiver to the back, which length of pull is actually from the center of the trigger back. So this is probably somewhere in the 13 and 5/8 range, roughly. I suspect it's probably about 3/4 of an inch to 0.80, somewhere in that range. That's what they've set these always to be for some reason, and it works. Second gen. The second gen is this exact stock with the rubber butt plate. That was the difference between the two. It's magical, right? I see no difference between the two. I don't know why they called it a different gen. They should have just called it the first gen with the rubber butt plate, but whatever. So this is the PRS Third Gen, and lo and behold, they got rid of this piece of shit, and they put M-lock slots here so that you can add a piece of Picatinny rail there if you want, or you can direct mount something like a B&T monopod or something like that. So this has 27.8 ounces, so it's essentially the same weight as this one. Length of pull is 11.5 to 12.9 inches. And the cheek height rise adjustment capability is 0.8 inches. So this one from the back of the stock is 11.25 inches. So this one is longer than the first and second gen just by a little bit. It does have a really nice rubber butt plate to the end of it too. They added that. The biggest difference that they made from the first, second, and third gen is this piece right here. It comes with two different necks. And that neck allows you to either use an A2 tube like I have on this one, or a carbine or an A5 tube. By changing this neck out so that it'll fit here, and then this screw and this screw are the two that you undo. You loosen this one, you take this one out. It slides over the tube and then these clamp on. I believe that there is a screw back here. Yeah, so there's still an A2 screw back here to grab onto the back of the A2 tube, which this one has that, so the screw's in there, okay? And that does help hold this entire assembly together, okay? This is a huge leap in technology, in my opinion. This changes what tube you can put on there, and quite frankly, on the AR-10s, and I've talked about this in my buffer video, I prefer an A5 tube on that with carbine length AR-15 buffers. So this allows you to set up an AR-10 with a PRS stock and not be subjugated to an A2 tube, okay? So it gives you that flexibility. Also, this piece right here is clamping on at the very back of the tube. Look, the tube I grabbed doesn't have one. That's fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant! So this screw right here butts up to that edge on a carbine tube or an A5 tube. It grabs on right here and it stops the stock from being pulled loose, okay? That's going to be important here in just a minute and we'll talk about that, okay? Keep that in mind. So this is essentially the fourth rendition of the PRS stock. What makes a PRS stock different than all of the other Magpul stocks? It has an adjustable length of pull and it has an adjustable cheek riser. And that is relevant, in my opinion, if you're putting a larger optic on your gun. These are all long distance firearms. I'm not shooting these at 10 yards to 25 yards. They're very important to get your eye lined up with your optic. So this adjustment, in my opinion, is the most important. The length of pull is important also, especially if you're shooting competitively. A lot more people are looking for a shorter length of pull nowadays. These are a little bit long for some people and they don't like that. I know a lot of the PRS shooters, especially as you're squaring your shoulders up, right? Instead of being bladed to the stock, they're squaring those shoulders up, and that changes how short that length of pull really needs to be in your eye relief properly. So having that shorter length of pull is seriously beneficial, okay? But if you're not looking for a shorter than the PRS Gen 3 length of pull, then it might not be advantageous for you as much. But that length of pull to make sure that your eye relief is 100% is really important. The cheek piece riser is absolutely terminal on a lot of guns with the larger optics. You just have to have it. And I mean, people are using foam and they're taping them on there. I have a gun like that. Or they're using a piece of Kydex that's been folded over with screws over it. There's a couple of companies that are making those that you can mount to stocks. They're making sure that their eye is aligned. This fixes that. The biggest problem with fixing your eye relief on a stock like this, on this type of platform, is that your charging handle is going to get in the way of this cheek piece if it's not made properly. Your charging handle has to clear. And see how these are a little bit shorter? Well, these are all AR-15s, but on an AR-10, it needs a little bit longer because the charging handle's a little bit longer, right? See this one? This one's a problem on the AR-10 sometimes. And that's why they made the third gen a little bit longer and the PRS Lite a little bit longer to clear that AR-10. Okay, so those are the general properties of the PRS line and why they're set up the way they are. Let me move some stuff out of the way and let's start talking about this stock in particular. The PRS Light Stock has some interesting features to it, and it is lighter. I know, shocking, right? So this is only 12.5 ounces. The PRS, or sorry, 18.2 ounces. The PRS Gen 3 is 28 ounces, 27.8. So that's 10 ounces. That's a lot of weight when it comes to humping a rifle for 2 miles over a day over 2 courses of fire. That's significant weight. At the same time, it's giving you length of pull and cheek rise just like a normal PRS stock does. And that's a huge advantage, okay? And I like it for that. This absolutely positively should be on every light, long distance carried PRS type AR in competition. This thing just makes all the sense in the world, in my opinion. It doesn't have a huge amount of length to it, okay? So it's 10 3/4 to the very end here, which length of pull, and the books, the length of pull on this is 13.85 to 15.25, which I think is a little long. I'd like to see it a little bit shorter than that, and that's about what I'm getting on this. It's a flat trigger, so it's a little bit longer, but minor amounts. I think you could collapse this and it would still give you that shorter length of pull that some of the PRS shooters are looking for. Like I said, I'd like to see this just a touch shorter. There are some things that I wouldn't say that they're terminal issues with them, but I would say that they just kind of made me stop and ask what the hell they're doing. One of the things was that it does not come with a QD mount cup, okay? So you mount the QD mount cup in this spot right here. There was a cover right here. Inside there was a screw and a nut. That screw is for the QD mount for this spot right here. And I'll show you which cup you need for this, because there's 2 different kits now. There used to be 3 different QD mount cups for Magpul stocks. Now there's only 2. Let me grab it for you. Hold on. So these are the 3 old types. They're not making the 3 old types anymore. They're making the type 2, and then they make the type 1 kind of with a whole bunch of screws in it. So all you need is the type 2 for this one, because it comes with the screw in there, okay? So we sell these for 20 bucks. Dear Magpul, put this in the box with the stock. Seriously, if you're going to put the screw and you're going to put the nut for that screw in here underneath the plastic tabs, put the damn cup in there. I mean, what did this cost you to make? $2? Come on. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. It just, when I saw that, I was like, what are you guys doing? The other thing that I saw that kind of annoyed me was that your adjustments for the stock are 5/32. So if I want to adjust the stock length of pull, it's this one right here, okay? I can come back and then I can tighten it and see how it dropped into that groove. So the second position is right down in here. I don't know if you can see this or not. It's right here, okay? But you need a ball head socket to get to that long way, or you need a small Allen wrench that you can get in there that way, okay? So that is also a 5/32 right there to lock this piece right here, your cheek riser, okay? Your stock adjustment right here is a 1/8. So now I have 2 different Allen wrench sizes for adjustment on my 3 different pieces, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I know why they use these screws. They use these screws because every other Magpul stock for this piece uses a 1/8. And they probably wanted to strengthen these screws to lock down these 2 pieces. But let's face it, they could have made a back plate and screws that used the same size as this one and still been just fine. Now you have a single ball head Allen wrench to throw that in there, and now you have an Allen wrench specifically set up for all the adjustments on this, okay? I don't know about the rest of you, but going out and finding a ball head socket to throw into my kit for my gun that I'm going to a PRS match so that it'll fit, and now I have to find two. That's kind of a pain in the ass. It's very doable. I have sets in my spare kit, but the reality is it's little things like that that make a significant difference on how easy or how hard it is to use a product. So it's a very minor thing. It doesn't detract from the actual use of the firearm or the piece itself, but it's one of those things that you're just like, you probably didn't think that through a little bit. So the other thing is that this is all of your takedown screws. So having your takedown screw sizes different than your adjustment screw makes a lot of sense. Now, when it comes to mounting and dismounting this stock, I found something very strange. This piece right here, which is locking the entire piece together, there's no screw in the back because this uses only a carbine tube. It will not use an A5 tube or an A2 tube. Okay, so that's that shoulder again. That's this shoulder right here that this is butting up against. Why was this not back here about 1/4 of an inch so that it locked in place and held it strong against the stock? I absolutely don't understand why they did that. I don't get it. I mean, all you had to do is move this back a little bit. You don't have to change any of your plastic. You do have to change your mold because this really needs to be back here. There has to be a reason for it, and I don't know what it is. The stock doesn't move forward enough to hit this, but this gives you enough that you're relying on clamping strength to hold this in place. And you saw how tight I got this, because when I initially put this on, it took me a lot of tension right here to stop it from pulling back accidentally. Okay, and that one is being held in place just fine. But man, I mean, having a mechanical lock instead of that clamp lock right there for just moving it 1/4 inch back a little bit, there's got to be a reason. If anybody knows what it is, post it up, because I can't figure it out, and I think it was a huge error on their part. I just see guns get smashed in competition so much. I mean, you put a sling on here, you put a sling on there, and you go run for 2 miles in the mountains, and then you get to your shooting location and this screw came loose a little bit. Now your whole fucking gun is slopping around as you're trying to shoot. Yeah, you can tighten it back up, but if it's a mechanical lock, right, it may be a little loose, but at that point it's not going to slide back and forth. So not sure why they did that. Is it a terminal issue? No, I don't think so. But then again, this is an initial review, and I haven't taken this out to the range and pounded on it. And we'll find out what happens when I do that. We'll see if this I doubt it'll come loose, but I have seen these cast lock pieces right here, which is basically the nut for that screw. I've seen them break. You can actually snap this. If you tighten it too hard, you'll snap this piece, and then you'll have to get a hold of Magpul and have them send you one. So, don't know. Don't get that. For the adjustment of the cheek piece and the adjustment of the stock, they fall well within the range of my body frame, no problems. If you are a super tiny person, I can see that this might be a little bit too long. Short of that, I think it's probably going to fit almost every shooter that I've ever met in my entire life. So minor things, screw dimensions, yeah, neither here nor there. Stop cheaping out, put a cup in there, put a ball socket, Allen wrench in here for your adjustments, and move this back a little bit. If they redo this, please move this back and so that it's a mechanical lock on there. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Other than that, this is the right step. I think that the market, for what I'm seeing in competition and prairie dog shooters and people who are carrying ARs hunting longer distances, this makes a huge difference, taking 10 ounces of weight out of it. 10 ounces of weight doesn't sound like a lot until you have to carry that thing for about 3 or 4 days, and then you start looking at how to lighten it up. This is how you lighten it up. So, good product. It's a new product. I'd like to see them change a few things.